So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Hello, and welcome to Palestine Today. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and my co-host is British journalist and campaign filmmaker Harry Fear. Hi, Harry.
Hi, Kathleen. Great to be back on the show.
That's fantastic. Well, Palestine Today is a radio show right here on KCAA where you'll get the unfiltered, that's right, the unfiltered truth about Palestinians, from Palestinians in Palestine and Palestinians in the diaspora. We may only have, 3 shows left, and so we are asking you, if you want to have the unfiltered truth about what's going on in Palestine, please go to my website, thekathleenwellsshow.com, and make a donation. All donations go directly to production costs for the show. So you can click on PayPal and donate directly to Palestine Today. We have to pay for our airtime here at KCAA. Why? Because KCAA is not corporately owned. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're not corporately owned here, because that way we can bring you the truth. We can tell you the truth. The truth you will get nowhere else in the mainstream media and or the alternative media. And so that's why we want to keep Palestine Today on the air. Another thing I want to mention is that on CNN the other day, I think it was earlier this week, Anthony Bourdain did a special on the food from Palestine. It
was excellent. The food was excellent, but the program was also excellent.
It was excellent. This is unusual. This was on CNN. This is mainstream media. Did you check it out? It's fantastic. You can Google, use the keywords Anthony Bourdain, food from Jerusalem, food from West Bank, food from, I think the title of the show was, what's the title of the show?
I think it was like Parts Unkept or something like that. Parts Unknown, I think.
Oh, that's it.
But you know, Kathleen, it was such an amazing show. I mean, in comparison to normal, I mean, I couldn't immediately think of how the program could have been better made. But, you know, I'm so cynical. You know, this is like one amazing show out of millions of hours of TV. This is probably like the only decent show about Palestine, Israel on CNN this year. You know, I'm so cynical. I think to myself, well, every year they have to make something so they can say that they're doing a good job. You know, what do you think?
Well, I don't know if they've ever shown the food of Palestine ever. So to me, I was excited because this was the first time that people got to see the food from the West Bank, the food from Gaza. This was unusual, and I think it's a fabulous thing. So now we're beginning to see the humanity with Palestinians. So we had this show on CNN. We have our show, KCAA, Palestine Today, and also you told me about a radio station in France that is focused on Palestinians. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a new program, I think it's maybe internet-based. I'm not sure if it's broadcasting on the airwaves, run by a friend of mine. I can't remember the precise name because it's in French, but we should hook it next week, hopefully. But it's great, you know, to see things starting off. I mean, it's a small number still, don't get me wrong, but to see some new stuff is great.
Yeah, it's showing the humanity. I think we all have humanity. We're not terrorists, we're humans. And so I think this is a wonderful thing. I hope things are changing. I hope this show, along with the other things, are making differences gradually, slowly, and that's why I'd like to keep Palestine Today on the air. So I implore
Help us.
I implore listeners, please go to my website, thekathleenwellsshow.com. The only reason why it's not PalestineToday.com is because I haven't had that. My web designer wasn't able to make that change happen as of yet. But believe me, I'm working on it with him. I'm trying to get that change made. So go to thekathleenwellsshow.com and click on PayPal and donate to the show. Also, I want to mention that tomorrow I'll be co-hosting with Roseanne Barr. We're going to be discussing on her show, Roseanne's show, at 11. And we're going to also be discussing Syria with Rania Masri and Grant Smith, who I had on my Wednesday show. So Roseanne is fantastic because she's open to new ideas. She's open to alternative thoughts and points of view. And so that's a good thing, too. So also check out the show tomorrow with Roseanne Barr. So that's that. Okay, see you guys later. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's great to have Rania Masri, who we had on the show, I think last week, or maybe the week before. I think, no, it was last week.
Right.
Talking about Syria. And she's an amazing activist, speaker, so eloquent, so sharp. So people have to tune into tomorrow's show.
Okay, perfect. So today, in our first segment, we have a pre-recorded interview that you conducted with a Palestinian author and journalist. Author and not journalist, author and what is it? And
well, these days it's all the same thing, right?
Right.
People end up needing so many jobs. No, I'm joking. But Ramzy Baroud is widely renowned author of 3 books. Most recently, My Father is a Freedom Fighter. He's a Palestinian from Gaza, and he's currently based in Qatar, where he is freelancing, I believe, for Al Jazeera English. He's a very, very interesting and very, very sweet guy. So I hope people find that this interview very interesting indeed.
Okay, so that's in the first segment. And then in the second segment, we're going to be speaking with Israeli Adam Keller. I'm really looking forward to his perspective because he has a lot of information to give us. So let's go, Joe, with the pre-recorded interview that Harry conducted with Ramzy.
Ramzy Baroud is a world-renowned Palestinian author of most recently the book My Father was a Freedom Fighter. And Palestine Today is grateful for having him with us now. Thank you for being on the program, Ramzy.
Thank you for having me, Harry.
Ramzy, last winter, following the war in Gaza, in a public interview, I said that one of the tragedies of the Palestinian injustice is the loss of what I called diplomatic identity, the basic idea that the so-called international community won't even recognize the nationhood of Palestinians. And you've recently written an op-ed, I think, for Ma'an news agency, talking about the geographical split between the West Bank and Gaza, and it's entitled Ramallah, Gaza, and the Identity Crisis. Could you talk a little bit about this op-ed and your thoughts on this so-called identity crisis?
The identity crisis that is happening within the Palestinian community is just it's not something that's only touching on Gaza and Ramallah. In fact, I used Ramallah and Gaza as an example of this overriding model that is really affecting Palestinian communities all around the Middle East and all over the world. The issue is very simple. For 65 years, Israel has tried its very best to destroy the national identity of the Palestinians. From the very start, from the early starts of the Zionist project, there was this argument that there was no such thing as Palestinians, and that Palestinians are more or less either just nomads or, just a component of the larger Arab identity. And if, at best, if that identity exists, it exists in a negative notion, meaning that they are a reaction to the Israeli identity that formed in the second half, more or less, of the previous century. That Palestinians are basically exist in response to the existence of Israel. Prior to that, there was no such thing, no such notion, which of course is inaccurate and great injustice intellectually and historically and all of that. The issue in my mind becomes a serious problem when the identity itself is fractured from within the ranks of the Palestinians. It doesn't matter what Israel says. It doesn't matter what American politicians and pro-Israeli media people say. What really matters, how do Palestinians feel about this issue? For a long time, we have managed, in fact, to maintain our national identity despite all the problems and the challenges and the attempts by Israel to fragment us. After 1967 in particular, there was almost like a reunion of Palestinians, those who were kind of found themselves floating in the Jordanian sphere, and those who existed within an Egyptian context found themselves when. It took us a while but not long, about a decade before elections were held within the occupied territories. And finally, there is this clear, well-articulated Palestinian national identity was formulated under the sponsorship and the leadership of Palestinian intellectuals from Gaza, from the West Bank, even from the Palestinian community in Israel. But then Oslo happened, and that's where, in my opinion, where the major split within that Palestinian identity happened. Oslo happened, and there was a culture that grew around Oslo, the pro-Oslo and the anti-Oslo camps. And of course, over the years, that culture morphed, and although Oslo itself is dead, doesn't really exist as a meaningful political platform, it exists as a culture. And Palestinians have been divided around that culture. And over time, of course, we all know what happened in the semi-civil war in Gaza, where Fatah and Hamas basically engaged in violent and other actions, and Gaza and the West Bank were separated. And over the years, now we are seeing that the reality has shifted. The ground has changed under our own feet without us actually realizing it. We don't talk about it. It's a very serious problem that needs to be confronted. But the fact is to pretend that the West Bank and Gaza are revolving around the same national objectives of yesteryears, and that the constants of the Palestinian national struggle of the 50s, 60s, 70s, I would say even till mid-80s, still exist as a unifying political platform amongst all Palestinians is a delusion. It really doesn't exist anymore, and there has got to be a serious discussion that would allow us to confront this problem.
And to what extent do you attribute any kind of Israeli or Zionist or Western conspiracy to the breakups?
Of course, the Israelis have been conspiring for a long time to achieve that. We all remember such statements by Ben Gurion and others about how Palestinians will eventually disappear, on earth like all the other downtrodden and poor populations, and it will be the end of the Palestinians as a people. And of course, other leaders who deny the very existence of Palestinians. Now, I would say since 1967 in particular, the whole idea of demarcating Palestinians geographically existed. The whole idea of creating barriers, separations between Palestinians. Of course, this goes back to 1948 and after that, but 1967 in particular, we began seeing areas divided and code names provided to this area and that, not just in the West Bank, but in Gaza as well. Of course, 2002, you have the Israeli wall, the apartheid wall. And that wall has divided the communities even further. And of course, we all know about areas A and B and C, which have been created by the Oslo Accords, in which the West Bank was. So imagine all these divides, all these code names, all these walls, all these checkpoints, to pretend that none of this had lasting effect on the collective psyche of the Palestinian people. I think it would be injustice. Of course they did. But again, they would have not been able to really leave very serious mark and to deform the Palestinian national identity if it were not for the fact that Palestinians found themselves willing participants in that game.
Today there was a rally in Gaza City which was a factional rally, and a friend of mine just commented on the sort of tragedy of the ferocity of the tribalism between the factions, just that even in Gaza alone. What's your comment on that? And are Palestinians living in the territories, to what extent are they aware of the kind of tragedy of the situation and how much this is all beneficial for Israel?
You know, I think you just touched on the key word here, awareness. When you are living the event, no matter how miserable, no matter how difficult, sometimes you just don't realize the extent of that hardship and misery until you kind of walk away from it and you see it from the outside. Many of my peers and my colleagues and my friends and my people in Gaza and the West Bank, the language they speak, the polarizing narrative in which they adhere to, the commentary they write in newspapers, the comments they put on Facebook, the kind of conversations you have with them in the street or over the phone, are all in kind of like kind of testimonies to that polarization and that tribalism, that ideological and political tribalism and factionalism that has afflicted Palestinian society for many years. And this is something that goes earlier, way before the Hamas-Fatah split. It's been going on in Palestinian society for many years. But again, every time Israel attacks Gaza, every time Israel carries out some sort of violent action in the West Bank, every time there's an intifada, whether a mini uprising or a major uprising, Palestinians find a way to shed all these differences, to cast aside this tribalism, and to mix their kufiyas, their symbols, and their language into one cohesive, unified body. But eventually, things kind of like slowly find their way back to the way things were.
I mean, I saw that with my own eyes in Gaza during and following the war, the coming together, and then slowly after a few months, all of the nice rhetoric about coming together as factions basically just subsided.
Exactly. And the thing, Harry, about this that makes this particular issue or this particular divide much more invasive and much more omnipresent is the fact that Oslo has been around for 20 years now. That's a generation. In previous disconnects that Palestinians had, in previous factional strife that they had, whether in Lebanon, in Jordan, or in the West Bank and Gaza, quickly things kind of managed to redeem themselves, and things managed to find their way back to some sort of balance. But Oslo has been around for 20 years, and as a result, you have a whole generation that was born and raised within that culture of division. A kid that was born on or a baby that was born on September 13th, 1993. Is a man now. Is a 20-year-old man in the West Bank wearing the Fatah kufiya, speaking a language that is completely alien to what we are used to, what our ancestors, what our grandfathers and parents are used to. They speak of Fatah and Fatah only, or they speak of Hamas and Hamas only. The idea that there is one unifying flag and one unifying verse of poetry and one unifying objective that brings us all together within that generation almost doesn't exist anymore.
In the op-ed piece, you referred to the renting out of the Palestinian political independence to donor and Gulf countries. I quote there. Could you talk a little bit about that in more detail?
Well, that renting process of Palestine, of course, has been going on for a long time. I would say in particular after Fatah and the PLO left Lebanon after the Israeli invasion of 1982, the PLO kind of fell under the spell of the donors, Arab donors and others. Its political sovereignty was no longer entirely its own. Yes, some would argue that prior to that was still the case. But I would say that, or I want to believe that at least there was a time from the mid-60s until late 70s and early 80s in which the Palestinian political decision-making process was largely its own. It manipulated or it had to work around the balances that existed within that region along with Arab countries, but in the mid-80s all the way until Oslo and until now, of course, that political decision-making was no longer an exclusively Palestinian PLO decision. And of course, we reached the point where we are right now, where the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah is not at all a representative of the Palestinian people and seems to be working entirely based on the whims and the wishes and the expectations of the U.S. Hamas was supposed to be the opposite of that. Hamas was supposed to, and this is why many Palestinians who are not necessarily religious and who are not necessarily kind of wanting to see some sort of an Islamic solution to the conflict supported Hamas, because they saw Hamas as as the kind of a counterbalance of that the culture of compromise and so-called pragmatism in which the Palestinian Authority found itself. But of course, after the elections of 2006, reality struck Hamas very hard, and they began realizing that they do have to play the game of politics. And since they had very little experience in that field whatsoever, they found themselves so very slowly renting out parts of that sovereignty to outside powers. Qatar in particular, but others as well, are now stakeholders, if you will, of the Palestinian decision-making in Gaza. So you have Ramallah selling out to donors' country, mostly in the West, and Hamas selling out or renting out its political decision to outside powers, specifically Qatar and few others. And between the two camps, the Palestinian decision-making, Palestinian political sovereignty, Palestinian national priorities that are based on the historic rights of the Palestinian people are finding themselves in complete distraction. They are being neglected, and the Palestinian people are no longer the main force behind the political movements of its leadership. So you have two leaderships that in fact are not representative of the Palestinian people. And this is a major crisis that I don't think that as Palestinians we've ever seen before.
In the last few minutes of our interview, I want to first look at the issue of elections. I mean, if elections were to take place this year, which it doesn't look like they're going to, what do you think the outcome would be, and what would that show in terms of popular will? And indeed, secondly, what is the chance of having elections anytime soon?
Frankly, whether elections happen or they don't, I think they are really meaningless at this point. In order for elections to be meaningful, there has got to be a comprehensive political agenda, national agenda. We are still a nation that is going through a revolutionary influx. We are a nation that is leading a war of liberation. And I don't necessarily mean a war in the physical sense, but a war that, I mean, we are an occupied nation that has been fighting using all means in order for it to prevail and to achieve its freedom and its liberation. The whole elections, I would say, the whole election process more or less was part of the Oslo fraud that allowed Palestinians to see themselves as independent, although they are not, sovereign, although they are not. They have ministers and they have people in uniform, although they have no territorial sovereignty. So if elections are going to be held based on that Oslo fraud, also delusion that we are actually independent and those elections are going to contribute to our sense of sovereignty, then it's meaningless. If elections are not held within a larger Palestinian national platform that brings the West Bank and Gaza together and Palestinians in the region and in diaspora around certain set of ideas, what are we voting on now? Are we voting on people to run our electricity and sewer systems, or are we voting around a clear national agenda? And based on that vote, we will decide the next course of our struggle. If elections happen around those lines, I think they would make sense. If they don't, then it's absolutely pointless.
Sure. I mean, to what extent does a perhaps unifying movement like BDS, the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, have the capacity to help with that?
I think BDS have perhaps been the only ray of hope under these very harsh circumstances. And I think BDS goes beyond boycott into really creating or imagining a new set of identities that would allow Palestinians all over the world, in diaspora and in Palestine itself, to challenge these prevailing narratives between Fatah and Hamas. How helpful will they be to achieve that national cohesion in the long run? I think it all really depends on the course that the BDS national movement takes, and of course on the circumstances on the ground. No matter how comprehensive and cohesive BDS national leaderships can be, if the situation on the ground continues in this split between Fatah and Hamas, and the regional environment continue to be so unhelpful, I think their chances of creating true departure from where we are right now is pretty limited.
My final question, Ramzy, to what extent is it necessary to have this Palestinian national cohesion? And is it a manifest obstacle to justice and peace?
Absolutely essential. It's critical. Without it, we are splintered. We speak of many voices. We have way too many objectives. We don't have a clear, comprehensive idea of what we want. We can speak of justice and peace until the cows come home, as they say, and it wouldn't make any sense if we cannot imagine and if we cannot elucidate and articulate what we actually mean by justice as Palestinians. Not just simple references to international law 242338. As Palestinian people, what is it that we want and how do we want to achieve it? If we do not realize that national identity and unify around clear objectives as a people all over the world, I think our chances of success are quite limited. But then, once again, Palestinians are known of always challenging this sort of obstacles and hardship, and always through intifadas and through all sorts of movements, finding a way, finding the heart of that national movement. And steering their way back to the horizon that they are trying to reach. I'm still so very hopeful, but again, I think that warning signs are so many of them, and they are around us, all around us, and we need to be very honest about it in order for us to truly reach that point.
Ramzy Baroud, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Harry.
That was Ramzy Baroud, author of My Father Was a Freedom Fighter.
So we just listened to an excellent pre-recorded interview that Harry Fair conducted with Ramzy Baroud, who is a Palestinian author and speaker, and we're going to take a break. But first, let me ask you, Harry, you say reference your op-ed. What is that exactly?
Oh, that was actually an internal production note.
I apologize. My bad. Okay, so we were just listening to a pre-recorded interview that Harry Fair conducted with contemporary Palestinian author and speaker Ramzy Baroud. We're going to take a break, and when we come back from the break, we'll be joined by Israeli and co-founder of Gush Shalom, Adam Keller. We'll be joined by Adam Keller when we come back from the break. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Thanks.
Your family, force from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Playgrounds for Palestine is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization dedicated to upholding the Palestinian child's rights to play. This is a right enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We operate through a volunteer board and staff, the generosity of our supporters, and a lot of heart. To date, Playgrounds for Palestine has constructed 15 playgrounds in Palestine, as well as refugee camps in Lebanon and Syria. To contribute to this most worthy cause, please go to our website at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org or send a check to Playgrounds for Palestine, P.O. Box 559, Yardley, Pennsylvania 19067 at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org.
Hi, this is Kathleen Wells, host of Palestine Today, which airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. right here on KCAA. And guess what? My co-host, Harry Fair, and I bring you the unfiltered truth. That's right, the unfiltered truth regarding Israel and Palestine. Every Saturday, you will hear from Palestinians directly. You will get their perspective and point of view directly right here on Palestine Today. However, to keep the show on the air, we need you. We need you to help us make this happen. So please consider making a donation so that Palestine Today can stay on the air. Go to my website, thekathleenwellshow.com, click on the PayPal button, and all donations go directly to the production cost of keeping Palestine Today on air. No longer do you have to rely on the mainstream media spin about this region. No longer do you have to wonder, why is U.S. policy partial or slanted towards the Israel perspective? And no longer will you sit perplexed, wondering why U.S. soldiers are consistently deployed to this region. Harry and I are here to bring you the news that you will get nowhere else in the mainstream media. Palestine Today. We need you to keep the show on the air. Donate at thekathleenwellsshow.com.
Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. That's thekathleenwellsshow.com. Donate to Palestine today. Click on PayPal. Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. Are you fascinated by the Middle East, but worried that U.S. foreign policy may lead yet to another war? Do you care about civil rights? For the past 30 years, the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs has brought its readers the real news, minus the corporate media spin. Read about Palestinians trying to survive the world's largest occupation. Learn how your hard-earned tax dollars fund that illegal occupation. Find out how much your members of Congress has received from pro-Israel PACs, and much, much more. Visit the Washington Report's website, www.wrmea.org, or call 888-881-5861 to request a free sample copy. Better yet, subscribe. It's only $29 for 9 issues. Mention Palestine Today and get a bonus gift.
PDM Web Solutions is the place to go for all of your web design and online marketing needs. And we're located right by you in Riverside. At PDM Web Solutions, we build websites with an emphasis on business marketing, upgradability, and easy editing that grow with your business and won't leave you boxed in. And now we're offering an extra special. Mention the Kathleen Wells Show or Palestine Today when you come to PDM Web Solutions, and we'll give you a 10% discount. That's right, a 10% discount. Check out our website at pdmwebsolutions.com or give us a call at area code 951-543-7608. You can check out Kathleen's website to see our work, too. That's PDM Web Solutions at area code 951-543-7608. Also, like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PDM Web Solutions. Reliable, fast, and creative. That's PDM Web Solutions.
KCAA Radio, AM 1050. Hey, tell a friend. AM 1050.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees. It could be you and your family, forced from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Welcome back. In this segment, we're delighted to have as our guest Gush Shalom co-founder. We had last week Yuri Avenery, and this week we have Gush Shalom co-founder Adam Keller. Hello, Adam. Welcome to Palestine. Welcome to Palestine Today. My first question to you, Adam, is what motivated you to co-found Gush Shalom?
Now, in fact, Gush Shalom is the latest in a group of organizations in which I've been involved since I was in high school in Tel Aviv, and that is a very long time ago. There's been a lot of organizations which split off from each other and united with each other and worked together with each other. I could tell you for all the organizational history, but anyway, there has been quite a lot of organizations since '67 which said essentially the same thing, that we should get out of the occupied territories, we should make peace with the Palestinians, we should let the Palestinians create a state in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, with its capital in East Jerusalem, and I still remember the time when this was considered very much a lunatic fringe idea in Israeli politics, and it is not anymore. Anyway, Gush Shalom specifically was created in 1992, shortly after Rabin came to power with a promise to make a deal with the Palestinians, and eventually he did keep his promise and paid with his life for it, but in the first half year where he was in power, he looked like a very big disappointment. He was, in fact, behaving in a quite rough and aggressive way towards Palestinians, and especially there was the case when an Israeli policeman was kidnapped by members of Hamas and killed, And then Rabin ordered more than 400 Islamists from Hamas and from Islamic Jihad arrested in the night and deported across the border to Lebanon. And they had nothing to do with the kidnapping and the killing of the policemen. They were mostly political echelon, members of charity organizations. They were just the ones who were easily accessible. And we felt that was very much an injustice. We also knew how deep the issue of deportation is in Palestinian identity and how deeply hurting it is for Palestinians to be expelled from their homeland. So we started an organization which was called the Jewish Arab Committee Against Deportations. And we had for 2 months day and night vigil in front of the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem. We had a tent there, a very big tent, very well made by Bedouins from the Negev actually, who know how to make good tents. And then we were keeping the protest, demanding that the deportees will come back. And then that happened in the beginning of December 1992. Then in the end of January 1993, Clinton was inaugurated, and he found this issue of the deportations on his desk. That was the first Middle East issue which he dealt with immediately after becoming president. And then he called Rabin personally, and he made a deal with him that these deportees could come back after a year. So the issue of the deportations was resolved. We were not 100% happy with it. We thought they should be allowed to come back immediately. But anyway, it was more or less accepted as solution. And then we had the choice either to disband or to continue this organization which was created against deportations as a more long-term organization. And that's what we chose. And the name Gush Shalom, it means in Hebrew the peace block. This name has a history that in the 70s, when the settlers started to go into the West Bank and in a very aggressive way, they called themselves Gush Emunim, which means the block of the faithful. And then there was a student group which was opposing them, which called itself Gush Shalom. And this student group didn't last very long, I think 1 or 2 years. So when we were there in the 90s, the name Gush Shalom was free, and then we decided to revive it and to use it, and we are still doing it after 20 years.
Well, it's very inspiring, and you have our full support here on Palestine today. Adam, it's Harry Fear here. Thank you so much for that insight. Could you talk a little bit about the press release that you actually yourself issued yesterday on behalf of Gush Shalom, addressing the incidences that have taken place in Israel, West Bank, in the last few days?
Yes. Yeah, there is, I have to say a little bit about the background. There is a long-standing policy, which is, I think, one of the most nasty and brutal parts of the occupation, that is a persecution of the most weak communities in the Palestinian society, the communities of shepherds, people who live a kind of semi-nomadic life, who live outside the settled areas, who are in fact quite marginal in Palestinian society itself. I think they don't always have the full support of, let's say, of city-dwelling Palestinians. That has been a little bit improved in the last few years, I think, but in general, the idea of some people in the administration of the occupied territories is when there is an area where there are only a few Arabs and they are weak people, not very articulate, and they live a kind of nomadic life, then let's get rid of them, and then we have the area so-called free of Arab presence. That's the essence of the policy, and this is a long-standing policy which has been implemented since '67 in several areas in the Jordan Valley and South Hebron Hills especially, but sometimes also against this kind of communities in other parts of the West Bank, and in fact, quite similar policies enacted also in the Negev against the Bedouins of the Negev, also that they are Israeli citizens, and some of them are even serving in the Israeli army, but it does not make them at all immune for this kind of policy. And we and other groups, we are not, Gush Shalom is not, by the way, I should not claim full credit. We are part of a coalition of organizations which is taking an interest in these marginalized communities, trying to get the interest of the international media, because the people of the bureaucracy of the occupation have the feeling that when it is going on in a godforsaken part of the West Bank where nobody comes and nobody notices, and they can do whatever they want. So we have taken already for the last 10 years the job of trying as much as possible to get the attention of the international media, the Palestinian media, by the way, which is not to be taken for granted, that Palestinian media knows about this very small marginal community, to get international organizations.
Sorry, Adam, just to interrupt. Could you just explain what you meant with that, with the reference to the Palestinian media?
Yes, I mean that the Palestinian media is not necessarily always aware of what happens in every corner of the West Bank. That is a fact, and I think it has improved. I mean that there were times 10 years ago that I was in a very paradoxical situation, that I was phoning to newspapers in Ramallah and telling them what happened to a Palestinian community in the Jordan Valley, and they did not know it. And that is improved. I think that now all these communities are much better linked up, and what is happening to them is immediately known to the Palestinian Authority, to the Palestinian news agencies, and so on. So I'm talking about past station. Hello?
Yeah, we're still on. Let me ask you a question,
yes.
Adam.
Yes. So anyway, what happened this week is not in itself a very exceptional situation, but it was still a severe case that the whole village, a very small village, what you call in English hamlet, a small village of about 120 people, who lived in kind of huts, and the whole village was razed to the ground, and everything which they had was destroyed or taken away. They were just left under the elements. And then the exceptional thing which happened is that there was more high involvement of European governments, also Australians, than I remember in previous cases. There were already cases before where people from embassies or consulates, in fact, because the consulates in East Jerusalem are in fact acting as de facto embassies to the Palestinian state to be. So the consulates in East Jerusalem are usually sending observers to note about such things and to report to the governments. But that is, to the best of my ability knowledge, the first time that there was such a high-profile presence of accredited diplomats going together with consignment of tents and emergency supplies for the Palestinians whose houses were demolished, and they got a very rough treatment by the army. What's called the concussion grenades, which are not in fact killing anybody, but which are creating very big noise, and it is very unpleasant when such a concussion grenade is exploding near you, and a French woman diplomat thrown to the ground and dragged along the ground by soldiers, and I think that the soldiers were not aware that these people were accredited diplomats. They thought of them as international activists. There are quite a lot of international activists from ISM, from World Council of Churches. There are several groups which are doing excellent work of being on the ground and being in places where Palestinians are hurt and treated badly by the army. So I think that the soldiers on the ground thought that these are one more case of this kind of activists.
Well, Adam, let me ask you a question. How does this kind of thing happen? How do we get to this point where this kind of thing happens?
Now, the thing is, I think if I take it, try to understand the logic of the army, which is that there are these people, they are illegal in the place where their presence is illegal. Their eviction has been approved by the courts, because according to the laws which were defined by the military authority, indeed they are illegal there. So we send soldiers to remove them and to destroy their huts. And then there are these international busybodies who are trying to help them and to give them tents. So we stop these busybodies from coming and we confiscate the tents. I think that is the way of thinking of the I would say, major or colonel on the ground who is in control of the situation. And they just did not take into account that in this case they are dealing with accredited diplomats, and when you are treating diplomats in that way, then you are creating an incident, international incident, and you are breaking the Vienna Convention, which is by which every country which has diplomatic relations with any other country has to respect the diplomatic immunity of diplomats. So they have created a very big trouble, and I would say that the officer who was responsible for it is at this moment getting told by his superiors that you have created a big mess.
Okay, we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back from the break, Adam, I'd like to ask you, what would you like to tell American listeners about the Israeli occupation? What would be your foremost thing to tell American listeners? We'll take a break, and I'll ask Adam that question when we come back. We'll be right back.
Sports from your home and your history.
We are the people, and this is our time. Stand up, sing out for Palestine.
Playgrounds for Palestine is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization dedicated to upholding the Palestinian child's rights to play. This is a right enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We operate through a volunteer board and staff, the generosity of our supporters, and a lot of heart. To date, Playgrounds for Palestine has constructed 15 playgrounds in Palestine, as well as refugee camps in Lebanon and Syria. To contribute to this most worldly cause, please go to our website at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org or send a check to Playgrounds for Palestine, P.O. Box 559, Yardley, Pennsylvania 19067 at www.playgroundsforpalestine.org.
Hi, this is Kathleen Wells, host of Palestine Today, which airs every Saturday at 11 a.m. right here on KCAA. And guess what? My co-host, Harry Fair, and I bring you the unfiltered truth. That's right, the unfiltered truth regarding Israel and Palestine. Every Saturday, you will hear from Palestinians directly. You will get their perspective and point of view directly right here on Palestine Today. However, to keep the show on the air, we need you. We need you to help us make this happen. So please consider making a donation so that Palestine Today can stay on the air. Go to my website, thekathleenwellsshow.com, click on the PayPal button, and all donations go directly to the production cost of keeping Palestine Today on air. No longer do you have to rely on the mainstream media spin about this region. No longer do you have to wonder, why is U.S. policy partial or slanted towards the Israel perspective? And no longer will you sit perplexed, wondering why U.S. soldiers are consistently deployed to this region. Harry and I are here to bring you the news that you will get nowhere else in the mainstream media. Palestine Today. We need you to keep the show on the air. Donate at thekathleenwellsshow.com.
Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. That's thekathleenwellsshow.com. Donate to Palestine Today. Click on PayPal. Donate right now at thekathleenwellsshow.com. Are you fascinated by the Middle East, but worried that U.S. foreign policy may lead yet to another war? Do you care about civil rights, For the past 30 years, the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs has brought its readers the real news, minus the corporate media spin. Read about Palestinians trying to survive the world's largest occupation. Learn how your hard-earned tax dollars fund that illegal occupation. Find out how much your members of Congress has received from pro-Israel PACs, and much, much more. Visit the Washington Report's website, www.wrmea.org, or call 888-881-5861 to request a free sample copy. Better yet, subscribe. It's only $29 for 9 issues. Mention Palestine today and get a bonus gift.
PDM Web Solutions is the place to go for all of your web design and online marketing needs. And we're located right by you in Riverside. At PDM Web Solutions, we build websites with an emphasis on business marketing, upgradability, and easy editing that grow with your business and won't leave you boxed in. And now we're offering an extra special. Mention the Kathleen Welsh Show or Palestine Today when you come to PDM Web Solutions, and we'll give you a 10% discount. That's right, a 10% discount. Check out our website at pdmwebsolutions.com or give us a call at area code 951-543-7608. You can check out Kathleen's website to see our work, too. That's PDM Web Solutions at area code 951-543-7608. Also, like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PDM Web Solutions. Reliable, fast, and creative. That's PDM Web Solutions.
Broadcasting more local radio programs than any other station in California. We are KCAA.
So many years of catastrophe, more than 6 million refugees it could be.
Welcome back to Palestine Today, and we're talking to Gush Shalom co-founder Adam Keller. So Adam, what I'd like to ask you is, what would you like to tell American listeners about the occupation in Israel?
Yes, and now since you asked me, I had a few minutes to think, because of course I could speak a whole hour about this subject and not finish.
Well, we'll have to have you on again.
I have only a few minutes. Okay. I want to say, of course, it is to a very great degree the United States which is sustaining the Israeli occupation. And we know it from the American history itself, because in 1956, when Israel occupied Sinai for the first time, then Eisenhower told Ben-Gurion, you are going to get out of Sinai, that's it. And then Ben-Gurion got out of Sinai, and that was it, within a few months. So, and there is no question, I think, that if there would be now an American president who would say in the same way that Eisenhower told Ben-Gurion in 56, then the Prime Minister of Israel would do it. And there are very many reasons why United States is not doing it and has not been doing it in the last 46 years, and that's why United States is supporting the Israeli policies to a very great degree. I want to speak about one thing of very many things which I could say. I think that one of the reasons why Americans tend to support Israel and the policies of the government of Israel much more than Europeans is because an American who is criticizing what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is essentially saying something also about the way that the United States itself came into being. I mean, if you take American history, then the word settlers in the 19th century American history was a positive word. When you take the history of whatever American city, then you will find usually that the first sentence would be said, the first settlers who created the city were Mr. Jones and Mr. Smith, and they have done this and this and this. So I think that that is a kind of a bedrock beneath the fact that there are strategic interests why United States needs Israel in the Middle East, and why there is the strong APAC in the Congress and so on. But the bedrock beneath, the deeper layer beneath all this, is that an American, without even thinking about it, I think, is as the kind of instinctive identification with what Israel is doing, because that is essentially what the people who created America were doing to the Indians, the Native Americans. And I think that since this is there anyway, also when it is unconscious and people don't think about it, I think it would be a good idea to bring it out into the light and to say, yes, we Americans are a nation which was created by dispossession of the people who lived here before us, and there is not so much which America today can do. It can a little bit compensate the Indian tribes and give them the right to have casinos in the reservations, but essentially what the United States did is irreversible. But with Israel in the West Bank, you can still do something about it. You can, in Israel, the West Bank is the modern Wild West, and here you can still intervene and you can stop what the wrongdoing, and let some justice be done.
Well, Adam, we want to thank you so very much for coming on the program today. Kathleen and I both are mind blown by your analysis. We love it, and we're going to have you on another show in the near future. We hope you'll accept the invitation.
Yeah, we are. You are welcome to call me whenever you want.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Adam.
Yes, I want to thank you, Adam. We are going to call you again because you give we're going to give you a full hour. The next time you're on, we're going to give you a full hour. So thank you, Adam, for being a guest on Palestine today. We only have, 30 seconds left. I want to thank you, Harry, for being my co-host. You know I love you, and we'll be back on again next week. Don't forget to donate so that we can keep the show on the air. You go to thekathleenwellshow.com, and we'll see you next week.
Donate, donate, donate. See you next week.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Rod Tanner, and for this afternoon, it'll be sunny and hot with a high 101. We'll have clear skies overnight, a low 72. Sunday continues to be sunny and hot as we wrap up the weekend with a high of 100. We'll have clear skies Sunday night, a low 72. Monday, we'll have a sunny, hot day with a high of 99. It'll be clear Monday night, our low 68. Then Tuesday should be sunny, our high 96. Again, for today, we'll have plenty of sunshine, our high 101. Tonight, it'll be clear with a low of 72. That's your weather forecast for this hour from the station that leaves no listener behind, NBC News Radio, AM 1050 KCAA.
So, you didn't like that opinion, okay? Give us another 15 minutes. This is the station that leaves no listener behind, AM 1050 KCAA.
It's Issues Today, a look at the challenges that face us all. Here's Bob Gorley.
Welcome to the program. Good to have you with us. Well, today, Dr. Maitland DeLand will detail how to talk to kids about cancer, Deepak Basu on his famous daughter's education legacy, and Judy Kalala on her children's books that deal with tough topics. It's Issues Today.
This fall, when your allergies strike, fight back with the power of Benadryl. It's proven more effective than Claritin at relieving your allergies. Get the powerful allergy relief of Benadryl and fight back when allergies attack. Benadryl. You know the drill.
Use only as directed based on studies in seasonal allergic rhinitis with Benadryl allergy 50 milligrams 3 times daily versus Claritin 10 milligrams once daily. Claritin